Introducing Tony and Other People, a podcast. Here's your host, Tony Levesque.
Well, that's always a good idea. But I haven't done one in about a month, and I was like, I'll see how long it goes before somebody messages me.
Yes.
Well, you were the first one.
Excellent. Yes. Well, I started listening to him over Thanksgiving break, and because somebody was like, "Oh, did you hear about Tony and the Other People podcast?" I'm like, "No." And
Do you know who it was?
Katie Carpenter.
Okay, she's been an avid fan since the beginning.
Yes.
Thank you, Katie.
Yes, she is a wonderful person living on Whiskey Lane in Turin.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Whiskey Lane.
Yes, to know people know where to find her. So,
that's where all the South Louis kids used to go to drink.
Oh,
during lunch.
Did not know that.
Yeah, I wasn't one of them, but I raised all my hell after school.
Yes, that's when I went bad. Yes, I did not grow up in Lewis County. I grew up in Antwerp, New York.
Oh, Antwerp. That's not far.
Not very far. Far enough away. So when you go to visit your parents, it's not a long drive to get there, but you also don't have to spend a night.
Right.
So you can get home.
That's a Fort Drum area.
Yeah, Fort Drum. Growing up, it was very common to see, the A-10s flying overhead. I remember when I was a kid looking off in the distance and seeing people parachuting off the back of planes and landing off on farm fields that were not on Fort Drum, but you could still see them from like 3-4 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And behind my grandparents' place across a railroad track, you could see the soldiers in maneuvers. So sometimes it'd be tanks, a lot of APCs or armored personnel carriers. But the soldiers back then, now in hindsight, I realize they were like 18, 19-year-old kids, more or less.
Right.
So they were as goofy as, I was when I was 19, except they were driving a tank. So
I tend to forget that a lot. We used to play up in Carthage a lot, and there's always a lot of Fort Drum.
Oh, yeah.
Fort Drum guys there. And I didn't realize it was a big issue, like them trying to sneak into the bar under 21.
Yes.
And then I realized, oh, wow, these guys are all 18, 19, 20 years old.
Yep. Up here in northern New York, trying to figure out what to do with themselves.
Right.
Yep.
They're all from Texas.
Yes, that's what I noticed about their trucks. Yes.
Seems like everyone on Fort Drum, they're all from Texas.
Yep. Well, big state, lots of guys. So, I was at Indian River when Indian River was as small as any of the Lewis County schools. So that's not even a brag. We had 4 elementary schools, then the 7th through 12th high school, and then everything boomed pretty much overnight. And went to the school just exploded at that point. And the great thing about it was the diversity of people I got exposed to in a high school career. Some of the greatest people I've ever met were military kids who had lived all over the world. So every ethnicity, every skin color, there were some kids who were not very nice, and there were some kids who were the nicest people I ever met, but I learned from every single one of them. So then I went to school in Maine, where there was not much diversity at all. So that was a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Took some adjusting too.
It's more like what I went to school. Yeah. South Louis.
Yes.
Port Leyden.
Right. Yes. But I tell you, Lewis County, Beaver River kids are great. Lowville, great school, but nothing like the kids from South Louis. Hard working,
it's different.
Yeah, they're gritty. There's some real gritty kids. There's some kids who, they might not have gotten out of the school district in 10 to 15 years. There's some incredibly hard-working young men have come out of there that have actually worked for me at the FFA camp over the years. Guys who just, they just work nonstop. And it doesn't matter. That's where I learned on the job. You always got to have some heavy lifters on standby. And if those heavy lifters can come out of the Turin area, the better. So,
well, going to South Louis, the one thing that I noticed the difference between us and, say, Lowville was kids in Lowville were all pretty much from Lowville, and they were used to walking around town. We didn't have towns to walk. Like, I used to ride my bicycle to Port Leyden or Lyons Falls and go to, Hoyg's Supermarket in Port Leyden, or this is before Stewart's, and they had Bon Fair in Lyons Falls.
Oh yes.
But that was the big difference, is we didn't all have a collective town that we all knew. And South Louis is one of those school districts that's huge geographically.
Yeah.
I mean, we had kids who were pretty much from West Leyden, and then some that were almost to the end of Chase's Lake Road.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a huge area with I think I had 98 in my graduating class, so a very small
Yeah.
population.
Yeah, it's sometimes you're driving down that part of the county and you just realize how far you're taking to drive from one town to the next. So sometimes I'll do everyday direct mail, and I have to drive things directly to the post office so these flyers can be sent to every mailbox, and that's when you really see the differences in the towns. But
Right.
great schools, though. Great schools.
Yeah. They are very highly rated, too, in New York State.
Yes. That is, my wife and I feel pretty sure that no matter what we do professionally, our goal is to stay in Lewis County, and the Beaver River School District in particular, just because there's such high caliber, high quality teachers who are all looking out for everybody. And then the school district's small enough where everybody knows if somebody needs something, they can, make a phone call or just reach out and help the person directly. So,
Right.
I always worry that if we leave the school district, what type of treatment are my kids going to get?
Right.
So, Indian River was not that big a school, even by today's standards. It's not that big compared to many schools around. But there's, I can't even remember how many buildings there's now. I think there's like 7 or 8 buildings in the Indian River School District. So you get moved from building to building pretty quickly, if not every 2 to 3 years. So,
Right. I love living in a small area like this. It's working at the radio station. I realize that all the time. Like, people will call in, their dog is missing. And then they'll call back. And that's the best thing. Like, I hate announcing that somebody's dog is missing. But the best is when they call back and say, thank you so much. Somebody called. They saw it over here. We picked the dog up. And you get those little heartwarming stories because this is a small area and everyone knows everyone. And if they don't, they're going to figure it out once they lose their dog.
Yeah. Even on social media, someone lists, I lost my dog. In 10 minutes, you could have 50, 60 shares of one message. And usually the dog is found within like 8 minutes.
Yeah.
You can't even go outside and start yelling fast enough to get your dog back.
And then you have to quickly delete the post because people will share it until
they'll keep looking and looking and looking.
Right. That is the great thing about here. I notice what I post on social media. Like if I post about a podcast or something that I'm doing, I'll get a few likes and shares. But if I post a picture of my kid, or my family, or my house, showing that I'm just living life and loving it, there'll be 10,000 likes on there. It's an obvious exaggeration, but
not exactly.
I'm not Mark Maron.
The sense of nostalgia for the people living, I believe, outside the county looking in is through the roof. I mean, one of the pages on Facebook I manage is Lewis County, New York. That's one of probably my favorite hobby of all my hobbies currently, but I don't have a way of quantifying currently, but majority of the likes, shares, and comments are people who live in Florida, California, Texas, Oklahoma, whatever, and they're talking about when they were growing up. And you just show a church in Belfort once, and 45 people have a comment or a share about it, talking about the 6 times they've been in that church. So.
Right. Those are my favorite pages to follow. There's one about Port Leyden. Growing up in Lewis County, there's just a ton of them, and they keep popping up.
Yes.
Somebody shared, I noticed today, they shared it on one of the pages, and then everyone posted it of the church, the Eastern Orthodox Church.
Down
Whiskey Lane, or near Whiskey Lane, I believe.
I've never seen it. They had some sort of news press about it maybe 2 years ago. I think they had new owners that came in. It was one of those places I want to go check it out. Because
I wouldn't suggest it this time of year.
No, probably not.
It's not a fun road.
It'll be a different headline.
I'd wait till about June when the mud's all dried up.
But. Yes. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember driving up there as a kid. There used to be just a house somewhere up that road that had, I would dare say, a couple hundred jack-o'-lanterns that they spent all the season carving, and they'd have witches and stuff. And it was just a free thing for the kids, and they'd give out candy, and it was on that road. So first thing we would do while it was still daylight is drive past that church, which you can just kind of see over the hill. And I believe it's private property, so you can't really walk down to it, but I've seen a million pictures and may have walked down to it a few times. But growing up, checking that out and being all excited because we were going to the place that had all the Halloween stuff. And I don't know. I don't think it was a business. I mean, it was just a house that wanted to share all their Halloween
Yeah, I was trying to remember the headline, but I think someone had taken either it needed care and somebody else ended up purchasing it and working on it. So, but I haven't seen anything from it since. So
It is definitely out of the ordinary. It looks straight out of Russia.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
well, it really blows me away because like up in the Krogan area, obviously the Mennonite tradition's huge, and then. And I really don't have my thumb on what like ethnic traditions really are based in Lowville. But then you get really down into that South Louis area, like the Polish traditions and some of
Right.
the other things. It blows me away about the melting pot of America, as always. But then just like the small ethnic groups that define small regions, in the southern part of the county, especially how it bleeds down into Utica and Rome, some of those traditions and food culture as well, it goes back and forth. It blows me away.
Yeah, it's weird. They all come over from Europe, and then they mix differently here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an odd. I grew up, Port Leyden area, and like you said, a lot of Polish. My grandfather was a Burgoyes, and very, French, but
yeah.
a lot of their traditions were very, very Polish.
Yeah.
And even on my dad's side, a lot of it was very German. And then you got all the trapping that happened up here for a couple hundred years, and that was a lot of the French. That's the reason my families are here, a lot of it, and that's what you get a lot up in Krogan too. Is that
Yes,
that
Casterland.
they're really woodsman men up that way,
Well, the French aristocracy, trying to get out of the French Revolution,
right?
looked across the latitude lines and said, "Hey, this looks like a nice spot."
And then winter came.
Yes. Oh, hope we'll survive. Yes, I'm assuming they ate a lot of beaver meat. So
Yeah, well, that's where they got the name Casterland.
yeah, you bet. Casterland. Casterland. It was either I believe it was Casterland. Once upon a time, they had their own currency. There was an actual coin minted for that neck of the woods up there.
Right.
I've seen it, heard, and there's one or two locally, and I've seen it online, but totally obscure.
I believe Lions Falls had bills at one time too.
Yeah, I believe so. That was based on the local bank somehow, bank notes. So
Yeah, crazy.
yeah.
Boy, I couldn't imagine. I mean, we just had the blizzard last week. Imagine being up here in the 1700s, 1800s, and dealing with what we just dealt with all the modern technology, and still, it was scary.
Yeah, and think that if you needed help, no, we really, somebody got hurt, someone got sick. Well, good luck.
Yeah.
Well, of course, back then, if you got sick, sometimes you would just lay there for like 2 months before you got better.
Right.
Like, okay, go back outside. now.
Even if you did get to the doctor, he'd be like, "Well, rest and whiskey."
Yeah. I mean, because only really in world history, going to see the doctor has worked out to be better than a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Turned out to be better off
This
after
guy
you saw the
knows a
doctor.
little more than the rest of us, so we'll see
Yes.
what he has to say.
Let's see this guy's credentials as a barber. And you get to be the dentist as well.
Yeah.
All right, we got some sharp metal implements. You must be skilled.
Here's just basically a guy that doesn't get grossed out.
Yeah. So
So Oswegatchie, I know I've been up there, but I was a kid, so I don't even know where it is. I know it's in the woods. It's in what they call around here the big woods.
yes, I dare. Well, I know for a fact if you go past Oswegatchie on what they call Bear Pond Road, I think within 5 miles you cross 2 different county lines. So you go in Lewis County, I believe, into Herkimer County, and then into Franklin County through the woods. So that's just an idea of kind of how remote we are back there. And I like to joke, all roads lead to Oswegatchie because you got to drive through the entire county to get to Oswegatchie in the town of Krogan. Not the town of Oswegatchie, but in the town of Krogan.
Right.
So, yeah, you get up to Krogan and you go a little bit past, just as you leave town, you turn right into Belfort Road. 4 miles to Belfort, take a right-hand turn, you're on Long Pond Road. Keep driving. We have pavement all the way there now. The pavement ends about 100 yards past the camp. Then it goes back to dirt road again, and then you'll find a summer camp that's does year-round stuff. So you drive in. There's a sign. Look over the snowbank. You can see the sign. This time of year, that's kind of a deal breaker. Big brown building on the right. And you see a bunch of other cabins along the way. If you look at the right angle, you see a large pond called Long Pond, and that's where we are. So I've been there for 20 years full time.
Wow.
Yes. There's 4 full-time employees. There's Todd Lighthall. He's my boss. My wife Robin's also a full-time employee, so we live and work there. And then we have a 4th gentleman named Roland Crone. He's quite the darts player in Lewis County. So Everybody else, watch out for Roland. And
That's a huge thing up here too.
oh yeah,
It just where'd that come from?
yeah.
You know?
Roland was not adopted. He has been transplanted from Amsterdam, New York, up here.
Okay.
So he's brought his Amsterdam dart skills to the local scene. So he's known as the blind dartsman. So he shoots better with his glasses off than he does with them on. So that's how people know him. So Roland's more of a ropes course guy. So he does a lot of the group facilitation, runs our ropes course, which is a pretty big draw for us up there. My wife, Robin, does everything to kind of hold the whole ship together, organizes things, make sure all the small details are taken care of. Because kind of working with three guys, guys kind of details slip through their fingers an awful lot. Robin's there to catch them all, put them together, make sure we're all on our.
You always need a woman in the mix.
Yes, she was a very important hire developmentally for Oswegatchie, because for a long time it was just me and Todd. Todd's wife lives up there full time as well. She's actually a Cornell employee, works for a home office back there. So Todd and Sherry. And then they were going to start a family, needed somebody else to be around. So I got hired full time, and we were, back in the, Todd started working there full time in the 90s, and it was in rough times. Their enrollment for summer camp was down. What they were charging for camp wasn't quite high enough. So, and then the camp was really a seasonal place. It was a lumberjack camp built in the 1880s.
Right.
So 120 years later, things are starting to fall apart all over the place. So Todd, with basically no budget and just sweat equity and true grit, stuck to it and fixed everything up good enough so it was stable. Right. So it wasn't falling apart. And then I started full time. I focus on the summer camp program. So we are able to start building up more of our customer base by just building up summer camp. Off-season groups come in for environmental ed retreats, ropes course retreats, overnight stays, everything from corporations to churches to lots of mainly school groups coming in, and we just started building it up. And then my wife Robin was able to join as a full-time employee. And we weren't married when she started working there, but it worked out. And
just spent enough time together.
Yes. Right? I have a saying that the woods do strange things to women. It lowers their standards dramatically. So that has paid off for me. So so she's there, and then we really kind of help pull things together. It's one of those places where, if you know how to cook, you're going to be a cook. If you know how to do carpentry, you're going to be a carpenter. If you know how to clean, you're going to be a cleaner. If you know how to drive a tractor, you're going to drive a tractor. So any given day could be dramatically different than the last day, depending on what needs to happen. So lots of heavy lifting. Lots of shoveling snow. Better know how to plunge a toilet.
But you're working in the best view you could possibly get.
Yes.
I mean, it's the Adirondacks.
Yep. And there's trees, lots of trees. Wildlife. I think the woods up there are so thick that we have more wildlife as you drive to town where the open farm fields are than we have up there.
Right.
I haven't seen a deer on the Oswegatchie property in probably 3 months. Once it started snowing, they all went downhill. I did see a raccoon today. All this warm weather we're having, this raccoon just wandered down the road, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I scared him, and he ran up a tree and sat there for 2 hours. So
Today or yesterday was Turkey Day. Apparently, turkeys everywhere.
Oh, I believe it. It was so warm, and then the snow's starting to settle, so they can now kind of move around.
Yep.
The amount of deer moving on Long Pond Road, I saw 5 deer on the move tonight. Just driving up and down your road here, I saw 5 deer. They just stood
East
there.
Road. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's not during podcast. I've seen 30 deer cross the road right here.
That's cool.
Depending on what time of year.
Yes.
They gotta have really long legs this time of year.
Yeah. Yep. And then Oswegatchie, we're owned and operated by New York FFA. There's a foundation that technically owns us, but the foundation's job is to serve the FFA. So the foundation manages Oswegatchie, but it's basically the same staff, the foundation doing the stuff for Oswegatchie. So mainly the 4 of us. There's a board. We have a lot of volunteers, a lot of other people helping out here and there. A lot of people who are donors, donating to the cause so we can get more and more stuff accomplished. And the thing that most people have been there for is the Adirondack race. That's the big rubber duck race.
Which is huge now.
Yes.
How many years?
This is our 25th anniversary year.
Wow.
Yes. So it's a lot of rubber ducks.
Yeah.
So the first year, I believe, was 500 ducks, and they picked the date that was a pancake breakfast because there was already a crowd there. So it was a makeshift audience, no problem. Now we're 2 years ago, we had our highest of all time was 7,500 ducks raced. And we pick every single duck up after the race.
Wow.
And then we use them every year over and over again. So 2 years ago, it was nice weather. Record enrollment, record duck races, but the weather was pretty nice. Last year was cold.
Yeah.
It was snowing the day of the duck race. So last year we took a hit in enrollment in duck sales. I think last year we were around 7,000 ducks sold. But then we take all that money and we use it as a subsidy basically for the summer camp program. So we keep the costs low for everybody. So whether you're from Clymer, New York or Rouse's Point or Lowville, you can come to camp for a reduced rate. And it's a teen camp too, so it's teenagers, kids in high school. So
Rouse's Point. I used to go camping in Rouse's Point.
yes, I used to drive through Rouse's Point on my way to college in Maine, and it was always one of those places where I wanted to stop and like hang out and look around, but I had like another 7 hours of driving ahead of me, so
Yeah.
there was no free time to be had.
I have fond memories of Rouse's Point looking for champ.
Yes, that would
Yes.
be a prime pastime up there. So.
Right. I believe they had the little signs along the side of the road and pictures of the Loch Ness Monster of Lake Champlain, Champ, of course. And frogs. Oh, the campsite we went to, we would just get buckets and buckets of little tree frogs and collect them up and, take them over to the water, put them in. And am I wrong, or is that the most northern point in New York State?
Well, I know as you're leaving Rouse's Point, about to go over the bridge, you can more or less see the border from there. And they had a pretty good duty-free shop across the way for some good quality Canadian beer.
Yeah.
I only did that once or twice on my way up. So, because I was a poor college kid,
Right.
you drinking good quality beer might not necessarily be in the budget. So,
Nah, you wait till later in life for all that.
yes. Yep. And now
I
we're
tell the wife that all the time. I drink quality, not quantity.
yes.
Now.
Yes, that's smart. So,
We used to go up to Rouse's Point and then cross the border and go to a place called Park Safari in Canada, and it was a zoo that you drove through.
oh yeah.
And they had the water buffalo. And
I think I was there when I was like 6 or 7. My parents have some of the like old school pictures, on that nice like cardstock, from then. So I remember like a monkey on the dashboard, on the hood of the car, and a giraffe sticking his face down into the car, something like that. But I was pretty young at that point, so.
I remember they had the monkeys, and they used to let them climb on the cars, and then so many vehicles got damaged that they ended up putting them in a cage, and you could walk through. I think it was a bridge that you could walk through that had mesh over top, and they would climb around. But,
yeah. I think there was a lot of broken windshield wipers and antennas being bent over. So, well, back then, in Northern New York, like, where exotic place could you go?
Right. That was exotic.
You would go to Canada.
We'd go to a different country.
Yes. Go to was it Brockville? There was a number of times we crossed over from Canada. That was a pretty big deal back then.
Yeah.
So,
but crossing the border was nothing.
Oh,
back
yeah.
then. Now you got to make sure you have the correct license, and how long am I going to wait?
yeah, I often don't cross because I don't know, do I have enough paperwork with me?
Right.
They're going to repossess my kids if I try to come across the border?
Right.
I don't know. So,
School trips, all you needed was a birth certificate. But then you had your original birth certificate traveling
yes. If you can,
entrusted to a,
If you're-
10-year-old child.
if your parents hadn't already lost your birth certificate on you somewhere in the files.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I ever did maybe my junior year in high school, we went over to Ottawa for something. I think it was a student council trip. So saw the Capitol over there and some art museums, and was astonished by how clean the city was. And
Right.
then we left. So
Wellesley Island was always the go-to trip for South Louis.
yes, the mini Anthony Nature Center. I'm assuming.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, probably in grades K through 6. I was probably there like 5 times.
Right.
We did a winter trip. I remember that was a pretty formative experience for me, just the skiing and snowshoeing and whatnot. But we were little, so
I've discovered Grindstone Island.
don't know that
I
one.
believe it's right next to Wells. I want to say it's bigger even. But I have a friend, Brittany Keene, up in Watertown who plays music, and she recommended us for a gig up there. And you take a boat out, it doesn't hold maybe 5 people and all your gear, out to this island. And because it's an island, there's smashed up vehicles because why take them off there, So we rode to, it's like a little, like a fish and game club there, and they all chip in and have dances every single weekend. So it's an experience to go up there, and we go a couple times whenever they hire us in the summer to go out there, go out on the boat, bring all of our equipment, and ride in a van with no door up to their little Grange Hall or whatever it is, and play some music for all these great families that are on this 3, 4, 5 mile long island.
Wow. Is that mainly a summer gig?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There's only, I think the guy was telling us, maybe 3 or 4 residents that live there year round.
Wow. Yeah, the funny thing is, growing up in northern New York, so let's say Antwerp, we went to Sackett's Harbor and Clayton and those neck of the woods all the time. And growing up, and you see it, and you go on enough boat tours, you have no idea how big a waterway that is.
Yeah.
St. Lawrence River, big. Lake Ontario, huge. But when you grew up your entire life, you have no clue how big that body of water is. I had to go to Hawaii to realize what big water meant. Because obviously it's the Pacific Ocean. The biggest ocean there is. And then you came back and you're at Sackett's Harbor looking over the new stone wall there, and you're like, oh, this was here my entire life, and I took it for granted.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Wellesley Island, love that. We used there for marching band quite a bit, school trips. So after a while, I knew the nature center pretty well. So I knew where you can get down to like the water and see out across the way and whatnot. And I even knew how to cut back to like the main building without using the trails, which wasn't very smart, but
It's amazing nowadays too with Google Maps. You get to actually look at that, and something that you wouldn't normally do. The route to Cape Vincent, so you drive up there and drive along the coast, but then you see it on a map and see how far the island is actually out, or how big Lake Ontario actually is. And take that for granted that now we have that at our fingertips.
Yeah.
Growing up on a road trip, you had to buy maps in every state that you went.
I find maps, they were so important in your car.
Oh yeah.
If you didn't have like 4 or 5 like state maps, and then a gazetteer, and then a couple other local maps, you would never get anything done or accomplished.
Right.
And now with the phone, like I'm half mile down a road, and I was like, I'm not sure where his house is. I know it's here somewhere. I just clicked it in. Half a mile on the right is. I was like, oh, that was easy.
I get to where I don't even follow signs anymore.
Yeah, I haven't used GPS or the map thing a whole lot, but when I first started using it, I had the problem of doing exactly what it said when it said it. And I'm like, no. You still have to use your eyes.
Right. A little bit of judgment.
Yes. And that was in Syracuse. I was trying to find a friend's house on the backside of where the university is, and turn right. I was like, oh, whoa. The sidewalk's not done yet.
Syracuse can be confusing too.
Yeah.
I've been lost in some pretty sketchy spots of Syracuse walking.
Well.
Yeah, didn't know
they probably
if I
saw
was
you
gonna make it out of there.
They probably saw you coming. They're like, "Oh, don't mess with that guy. He's pretty confident to be walking around this part of the city."
Looking like that.
Yes. If he was in his car, it'd be a different story. Well, I had a friend actually walked from Armory Square all the way across some of the rougher parts of the city up to kind of the Glenwood Ave area, and he was wearing this big kind of long sleeved white shirt, button up shirt, and he must have looked entirely out of place. And I don't know how he made it back to my friend's house at like 11:30 or midnight, but he survived. They were probably like, "Don't mess with that guy. He must be crazy to be out here."
I used to go down there when I don't think I was even 21 yet, and to some of the clubs, and I had the leather pants and the the leather shirt with the sleeves cut off it, or the black shirt. Yeah, so I must have looked.
Yes.
Yeah, and this was down on Salinas.
Oh yeah, like
Plum
Salina,
Street. Yeah,
it's kind of like that Armory Square area. They've really cultivated over the years.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot nicer now.
Oh yes. Well, because they're on St. Patty's Day weekend. Nice is subjective at that point.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
There's not enough police sawhorses to keep the crowd back. So.
Well, St. Patrick's Day. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a week-long vacation just in one day. So
Yeah. It's a lot of green beer.
Yeah, I've got lots of stories about green beer, but you know, I was at a bar one time. I had apparently drank so much green beer that part of my face was turning green. So the bartender started calling me Lou Ferrigno.
You don't want to see him when he's angry.
Yes.
Oh, so I used to work at the coffee shop here in town, and we could always tell the Oswegatchie kids.
Oh yes.
Yeah. There's just I don't know, indescribable. They're really happy
Yes.
and really hippie.
Well, our kids aren't that hippie. Our kids are pretty clean cut for summer camps.
Right.
I've met some other summer camp staff that I was like, whoa.
Unirondack, you mean?
Yes.
The only other one.
Well,
And Beaver Camp.
Beaver Camp, they're pretty clean cut and dapper. But they're a lot younger than our staff. Our staff tend to be 18 and older. So most of them already have a year of college underneath their belt, because you're dealing with teenagers. You can't have 16-year-old counselors dealing with 6-year-old
Right.
campers. That will not work. So most of our guys are 18, 19. Most of our staff are female because most of the camp is female. Over the last 15 years, on average, we'd have 75% females, so 25%
Really?
males. Yeah, and that camp used to be just for guys too. So, and that's a whole nother story. You know, girls really are stepping into as many leadership roles and opportunities as they can.
It's amazing in Lewis County the past couple of years,
Yes.
especially.
So let's take Congress for this last time around. There's a huge influx of female representatives, I believe, in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. That's been coming 15 years. And the kids we come through Oswegatchie are those young people who want those roles and opportunities. Lewis County Leadership Academy, same thing. If you look at that, it'll be a group of 15 people. There'd be like 3 guys and 12 women. No, it is coming down the pipe. So our summer staff represented the exact same thing. So, I mean, they got like Fredonia graduates, graduated from college before they go finish their master's degree, spending summers at Oswegatchie to practice their teaching skills for the most part. And because they are older like that, they're a little more relaxed, a little more chill. They got over a lot of that high school angst, so they don't not so uptight. So that's
Right.
probably where a little more hippiness comes from. The Unirondack staff, when I ran across.
They are really hippie up there.
Well, I go back to about 2001. I was in Watertown at one of the Chinese buffets there. So having a good little meal, and I see these guys come walking in, and they got hoodies and all those dreadlocks and stuff, and they were pretty rough. Now, when I went to school in Maine, Unity College is it's a lot like Lewis County. It actually feels just like Lewis County. Waldo County, Maine is almost Lewis County, New York.
Right.
So, I mean, my college dorm, out the back door, there was some pasture full of beavers, pulled Herefords. I'm out there feeding them apples after lunch. So Unity College had a lot of dreadlocks, a lot of, corduroy,
hacky sack,
patchouli oil. I mean, but there was just as many country redneck kids as there were let's say suburbanite type hippies, whatever.
Right.
So these Unirondack kids come in, and I'm just like, oh, who are these guys? And then one of them walked back out, and I saw the Unirondack logo. I'm like, wow. Now, I've been to Unirondack a number of times since then. There definitely has been a change in culture over there as well. So a lot less dreadlocks and corduroy than there was probably in 2001.
Well, I think in general, across the board, there's a lot less of that. The hippies are changing.
Yes.
And they always do, but
Yeah, it's culture. Culture's always changing. So,
Yeah.
Unirondack, I mean, they're Unirondack's so far off the beaten path that probably not many people locally are making their way to Unirondack to check it out, but
Right.
they are doing some great facility stuff over there. I had gone in there maybe about 3 or 4 years ago for something, and I was like, whoa, they got some nice stuff in here. A very nice pavilion they built for some of their performing arts stuff. Great layout of their dining hall, the way their cabins are laid out along the kind of the ridge line there, pretty cool. And then across the water's Beaver Camp too. So
right.
Hopefully
There's always another camp across the water, doesn't it seem?
Yes. Onosmogachi, we're lucky. There's some private camps on the property. For the most part, they enjoy having us as neighbors. But like almost in every movie or TV show, there's always another camp across the water.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Well, the camp I went to growing up was Camp Portaferry,
Oh yeah.
big Boy Scout camp.
Yes.
And so we would have killed for some, female counselors, but
Yes.
didn't happen.
Yeah.
And there was always the rumor that there was a Girl Scout camp across the way. I don't think it ever existed.
Oh well, Camp Trefoil.
There was.
Yeah, so you probably would have had to go on a pretty serious orienteering trip to get there,
Right.
Because the way the hills, I'm not familiar totally with the hills over there, but I'm pretty sure you could have made it on foot to Camp Trefoil.
Well,
But those girls have probably been a little too young for the Boy
right.
Scouts.
Yeah. I would always sign up for the canoeing trips because it went around the whole lake and
Nice.
to see if we never saw any.
Yeah,
any
Trefoil is like on their own small little pond somewhere, is kind of off on one of the back roads there. So I've never walked around. There's one of those camps I got to and kind of looked at from the gate because it was like October and I didn't want to be this weird guy walking around with his dog in somebody else's camp. So
Yeah.
at Portaferry, when I was a kid, I was in the Scouts. I thought we were going to Portaferry. Never worked out. Never got to go.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then I've went after it was closed and there were gates and some of the real estate signs over there. I've always pulled in, but once again, didn't want to be that guy who was just
Right.
riding around.
That was such a big part of my childhood. I mean, did a mile swim there. I went there for the Order of the Arrow.
Oh yeah,
And we did a 2-night stay where you make your own shelter. You
Yep.
don't bring anything in but a knife, maybe a few canned goods, and it was great
Yeah.
experience. And I think more kids need to experience camp
oh yeah.
and the outdoors in general.
There's so much structure because when I was growing up, I go to my dad or my mom, like so when I was like 7, I go, I'll be back in 2 hours. They'd be like, okay. And then we'd go off and tear across all the forest. My neighbor's kids, we'd either go to his house or he'd come to my house, and we'd go out in these ridge lines and follow cow paths to the woods because our neighbors would rent our property. And so there was always, we probably had 30 different forts built around the woods and all that. And you come back in and after 2 hours, check in and go back out for like 2 hours by yourself. And like it's 7 and 8. And nowadays we're so uptight about everything.
Oh, I know.
That you're like, so much structure for the kids. And then, so
This country's very obsessed with safety.
yeah, nobody wants to look negligent. Nobody wants to look like a bad parent. Nobody wants to be held accountable or responsible by somebody else because
And nobody wants to see anything happen to their kids, which
Yeah.
I understand now having a kid, but you got to let them
Yeah.
fail a little bit.
yeah, and that's the great thing about summer camp. And I tell a lot of kids, and this is a little bit of my psychological tricks I'm playing on them. Make sure you do something this summer that's unforgettable. Don't just sit around eating candy bars and playing video games all summer. Because when you go back to school, you should have something to brag about. Even if something you just did for a couple days, make sure you have something to talk about because it really pays off. When you're 18 or you're 80, you will remember going to summer camp. Even if you had a bad time, you will remember going to summer camp. And our camp, because the FFA, let's be honest, if you look over the history of agriculture in the United States, we're talking utilitarian people. If it doesn't have a purpose, you don't need it.
Right.
So when these ag teachers decided to build a summer camp on this old logging camp in 1946, the kids carried their own luggage. Back then, the kids all did what they called camp improvement. So these kids would do like 20 hours of manual labor a week at summer camp on their vacation away from the farm. Now, back then, only doing like 20 to 40 hours of manual labor a week was considered a vacation
Right.
for a lot of these farm kids. But we've, the more things that change at our camp, the more that stay the same. There's, most kids do have to carry their own bags. We'll transport out the heavy stuff, but it just requires so much more responsibility from kids. And so, we got to, it's like a lot of camps. You're playing a lot of cards. You're playing a personal responsibility card. You're playing a socialization card. You're just doing new skills and you're doing new things. And you're getting a vacation from your parents. So camp is powerful. So
I also used to go once a year to Camp Guggenheim,
Catholic camp, right?
Catholic camp.
Oh, very good.
I believe Saranac Lake.
Yes. Never been there. Michelle Watkins, I think, from Beaver River, was staff there, if not camp director, for I think 6 or 7 years. So
yeah.
So
I think she was camp director at one point.
I think so, because every so often her and I will be in conversation about something, and then you can see she gets.
I haven't heard that name in 30 or 20 years. 20 years.
Oh, she's on Facebook. So
wow.
Yeah, look her up. She does always done a lot of aquatic training for people in the area. I think she's getting out of that now to let the next generation kind of take some leadership in that. But every so often we'll be talking about camp, and you can see the old camp director, smile comes on her face, and we'll joke about the job of being camp director.
Yeah.
So and all the things you're doing for the kids. So.
Well, I thought it was great because I spent so many years going to Portaferry with all the boys.
Yes.
And then got to go to a co-ed camp. I think I was 15 and 16 when I went there. And
oh yeah,
world of difference.
Yeah, and I totally agree that.
And I definitely bathed a lot more and kept myself up a little bit better.
Oh, that's a big difference. I was a super shy. I wasn't a shy kid, but I was shy around the girls. And in the FFA, you would see the same girls 4 or 5 times a year. Belleville Henderson used to have a group of girls that were all pretty much rock stars, and they all were gorgeous. And I was super scared to talk in front of them. Like, oh. So by going to camp, I would basically get practice talking to girls I didn't know. So that's as far as it went. But I totally believe that the Boy Scouts, there's a place for the boys to do their thing, and the Girl Scouts, there's a place for the girls to do their thing. But most of the time, when you start mixing the genders together, they raise the game for each other. Sometimes boys just need the pressure of a girl being around to step up and be a better person,
right?
Whether it be a smarter person and less silly or goofy. I don't know, but and sometimes I've seen some Boy Scout troops where they all just they just be boys.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden a girl shows up for whatever reason, and all of a sudden they're standing straight, paying attention. So
I don't know. Yeah. I have a hard time. I have a daughter. So, I had a great time in the Boy Scouts. I never made it to Eagle, but, pretty close. And the badges didn't really do much for me. It was about being out in the woods and the survival skills.
Oh yeah.
And, when it came to the paperwork part of it, nah. Not for me. I could tie every knot there was. And I want that for my daughter. But I also, growing up in the Boy Scouts, it was the boys. And that's what we didn't have to worry about, acting different. And there's so many hormones going through a kid's body at that age, boy or girl, that having those separate, it kind of dulled that. So you weren't worried about that. You could focus on a skill. So the mixing of the boy... I don't know how it's a touchy subject for everyone, obviously. And I understand that the Girl Scouts do different things.
Yep.
Now, when I grew up, I think there was a thing called Explorer Scouts that was co-ed.
Yep.
And that was mainly for older.
I think it boils down to just about, like in everything, the leadership behind it. So I've heard of some really high-end Explorer programs out of Syracuse. And it's... it pops up here and there where explorers just flourish in different places. So, and it's interesting too because all these have like that slight paramilitary organization,
right? That
military structure, and some kids just take that like ducks to water. So,
right, and I think some kids need that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, our kids are so lucky, and I tell them this too. I go, by the time you turn 18, all these things that people are bending over backwards for you to do disappear like a snap of the fingers.
And they really don't appreciate it until they're, in their 30s, at least. I know I'm appreciating now. It just hits me like a bolt of lightning. Oh, wow, my parents did that for me. And I didn't realize how much of a sacrifice this certain thing was. Wow, maybe I should really appreciate that. And now being a parent, it's the same.
Well, the crazy thing about parenting, all of a sudden, everything your parents did for you or a teacher did for you, all of a sudden is in perspective now. And you're like, I wasn't that smart when I was 14.
Yeah. Oh, I really needed them to tell me to do this or that.
Oh, man. And the craziest thing about is the things they didn't tell you to do better because they knew it was a waste of time telling you and that you'd figure it out on your own. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's what that was about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's always going to be opportunities for good scouting parents, no matter what the gender is.
Right.
Cause,
I'm happy that the whole thing exists. I'm happy that, if they're going to let girls in, I just think there should be an option of all boys or all girls if that's what they want.
Yep. I think every community is going to be a little bit different, and it's going to be pretty wild times. But I think the Boy Scouts are filing bankruptcy. Yes. So
yeah.
But once again, it's another thing in the modern world that's changing. So the only thing that keeps constant is change. So
right.
And then honestly, with the internet and connecting groups of people and like-minded people together, it's just going to get easier and easier. And then, you go on Pinterest alone, you can find teaching material that was 10 times better than anything our parents or Scoutmasters had 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Everything from knot tying to how to safely use a hatchet.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the day, and I know it'll eventually happen and put, millions of teachers out of a job, but that every course in school will just be a YouTube video.
Yeah, I had that conversation just yesterday, actually. It's a reality. But, it's going to be the combination of man and machine. That's going to be the really important thing. We're going to have really good online tutorials and stuff. And then we're going to have the mentors who are the teachers because we're always going to need teachers in the school system. If for anything else, at least a daycare provision.
Right.
Yeah. So nobody should overlook the fact that teachers are providing an incredibly important level of supervision that we should be eternally grateful for.
Yeah.
And then the fact that most of them have master's degrees in very specific subject matter and that they're experts on that subject matter.
And they really care about what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so it's going to be, the world's going to change, but there's going to be more opportunities to take kids outside and teach them how to.
There's always going to need to be a hands-on aspect of everything.
Yeah. Well, it also blows me away as well as you learn more and more about, and you realize just how differently everybody learns, how some people sincerely have no interest in mathematics at all, but are amazing with the written word, and vice versa with math. Same with math the other way around. Just people are so amazingly different. People who are engineers who can't do anything with their hands, and then a guy who can do everything with his hands but read a book.
Right. I always think about the amount of time I spent in school on math that beyond multiplication, even division, how much of that I've used since, and that amount of time that I could have focused on anything else.
Yes.
I was very thankful though. When I was in, let's say, second or third grade, it might have been even earlier, when they had computers in school and they got the Windows computers, and we actually got the first computer lab.
Oh, yes.
And how beneficial that was. At the time, didn't seem like much of anything to me, but looking back now, how lost I would have been if I were just a few years older, even, and not had that in elementary school. And like typing, I think just a few years ahead of me was typing class, rather than ours was BCA, basic computer applications.
Yeah.
So you were learning, a Word, Microsoft Word, and I'd be lost without any of that.
When I was in the fifth grade, I think we had a VIC 20. I think that's what it was. The program was on an audio cassette tape, and you put it in this machine and you rewound it just like you're going to play music, and then you did you had a chance to do multiplication tables on it. So it was let's just call it a teaching game, but no, it was just multiplication.
Right.
And kids were crazy for that.
Yeah.
And the kids who were really good at it, which wasn't that hard in hindsight, they would still hog the whole thing. And then we got another, I don't even know what it was in the back of the classroom, but that was more like your standard PC, and we had the typing games. But it's amazing how uptight teachers were about learning how to type for so long.
But you know what? In my life, it's really come in handy knowing how to type. And I watch people my same age that use the two-finger method. And I don't know how they get through life. I mean, well, I guess you can do that on Facebook on your phone.
Yeah.
Two-thumb method.
Well, yes, that's when you also go blind at an early age and try to do everything on a cell phone screen.
Yeah. Oh, now, I hated high school, going to high school, but now I look back and miss it a little bit. I think, wow, I could have done this. I could have cared a lot less about this or that.
Yeah. I should have dropped chemistry.
Yeah, me too.
Turned out in high. It's one of those things you get in a track and you think you have to do it. And then the reality is no one's telling you, no, you don't have to. Because I would have been much better off having those study halls. Because whatever back then they called course 3 or trigonometry, it was like my enemy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think certain types of math, your brain just cannot process. And
Right.
trigonometry was that for me. I don't know what the deal was. Algebra, no problem. Geometry, no problem. Pre-calc, not really a problem. Trigonometry, never mind.
Yeah.
So I
have the same brain you do for math and
yeah.
course 3.
Well, when I was in college, I kept taking math. So I took trigonometry in college like 2.5 times. So I think I dropped out of it twice and finished like on my third try, but I needed that math for my college program. And then I just took pre-calc just because I never wanted to take math again. I go, if I get pre-calc out of college, I should never have to take math again. And then I transferred from Morrisville to Unity College in Maine, and I had to take statistics. I'm like, damn it. If I just take statistics instead of pre-calc.
And that's like the most hated class ever. My wife took it and loved it.
Yeah, it's accounting and statistics blows me away how important they are, especially in this day and age. I mean, if anybody who really wants to make decent money, you better understand accounting, because that's where they're like, oh, you understand how to do accounting, we'll pay you extra.
Yeah, yeah.
And the statistics nowadays is like, because of social media and advertising and all stuff, to know how much your impact on things is, you better understand statistics and be able to analyze it and even read into it. So those two things, it's amazing how important they are. But I did pretty good at pre-calculus at college, so
Yeah.
But I will say at that point, I had finally learned math isn't necessarily about the math; it's about learning to think all the way through a problem.
Right.
That was like an epiphany I finally figured out at the very end of taking pre-calc. I was like, oh. So, but at that point at Morrisville, that semester I'd gotten the highest grade of anybody in the pre-calc final. So I was like, wow, great way to end my math career.
Yeah.
So,
I don't miss math at all.
no, the accounting thing does get to me because I know that's my one true weakness, and so. But it's one of those things you can learn. But accounting's got its own language as well. So
Yeah.
that's my current hurdle I'm trying to overcome. So
Sounds like good advice from a guidance counselor. Just find the job that nobody else wants to do.
Yes.
It'll pay really well.
oh my gosh, yes, yeah. Well, I think your podcast is a huge service to Lewis County community. I just want you to know this.
Well, thank you.
I
disagree, but
well, everything has potential, When podcasts first kind of came out, and back when I'm still thrifty, but back then, I like to drive and listen to things. Well, audio CD was like astronomically expensive.
oh, still,
If you buy,
if you buy the CD,
yeah, now I can get all used CDs for almost a penny now, audio CDs. But back then, 8-disc Stephen King audio CD would be like $70.
Yeah.
So when I discovered podcasts, I loved it. So this is going back 10, 12, 15 years ago. It was still pretty green territory back then.
Oh, yeah.
It was really rough. And now it's kind of fleshed out now that NPR and a lot of the big production, the CBC out of Canada, they're pumping out content. So it's all coming to a real mature thing. But by you creating this podcast, you really are giving people a platform locally to share who they are. Because let's take Dan Myers, for example. I don't really know Dan at all.
I
didn't
really either.
I've been at several economic development events that the county puts on, and he was at maybe 3 tables over. Well, I didn't get to sit with him because I was sitting with somebody else, and having the platform for people to be able to explain who they are and their mission is a pretty huge opportunity. So I think what you're doing here is a great thing. And but with all things, practice,
Right.
Like Mark Maron, WTF podcast, one of the greatest podcasts of all time.
Yeah.
His first 200 episodes were pretty rough.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I jumped on like episode like 98 or something like that. And, he was still struggling with a divorce and several real demons in his life. So his first 200 episodes was, there was always this B story arc going through about Mark Maron getting over hating everything. And now, he's super successful and
But even so, when you listen now, you can still see those hints of self-doubt and self-hatred, and it pours through. So you're not only getting an interview with that person, but you're getting an interview and some bonus stuff from Mark Maron.
Yeah. And, I think this is obviously a true creative endeavor you're doing here too. So, hopefully you find joy doing this and you keep doing it for as long as you can. And I think you got a great platform to introduce a lot of people to everybody else across the county. So,
well, thank you. That's some great feedback. There's a lot of people out there. There's a few that I've done that I think the people that came on wanted maybe to redeem themselves, that maybe had a reputation that they didn't like. And I hope it changed a few people's minds when they heard the podcast and got to hear, from the horse's mouth, if you will. And a lot of the reason I do this too is for the people, because this is something that you can have, and 10 years from now can show your kid, or listen to it yourself and say, wow, I've come a long way, or I forgot I was doing that back then, or maybe I should go back to that idea. I can't believe I thought that way. I'm looking at the big picture on this, and even for myself, to go back, even I go back and listen once in a while to some of the first ones, and I just cringe at how awful. I mean, I talk for a living. That's what I do, but the true thing is I'm not very good at it. I rely on other people to make it make it good.
I think that's true. Like Tim Ferriss, one of my kind of favorite talking heads out there. He's just kind of he was a writer. Not necessarily fiction writer, but kind of documenting other people's lifestyles and how they are such awesome achievers and blah, blah, blah. That guy, he interviews Warren Buffett and, Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these really high end people. But, even his first 100 episodes are like, and, he's, Tim Ferriss is probably 35 or whatnot. So he's not even a very old guy yet. But he's, done several books and other things, but you can see the story arc and how people's skills build and how relaxed they get with it over time, and they find a way to help everybody else share. So I love the combination of Lewis County people and then the musicians intermingled in there as well. So that's a pretty awesome formula, I think.
I like showcasing what we have here, because the greatest thing that Lewis County has is its people, of course. But also, I've had friends that grew up here. My friend Bud Mauston, and now he's in New York City and Rochester, and big in the gaming world. And it's neat to bring him back here. And I follow him on social media and see how he is. But then we kind of both revert back to high school days. And I think every interview is different too, because you're talking to a different person who just has a whole different background, or our interaction. Like, this is easy. Yeah. You and I, this is, we could talk for hours. We could make this Joe Rogan style if we wanted to. Other people, it's a little more difficult.
Yeah. A lot of times people do have promotional agendas, things they need to get out there, get shared.
Which I like.
Yeah. It gives
That's what this is for me.
Yeah. It gives people purpose. So.
Yeah. What are you promoting?
Oswegatchie all the time. Yeah. Eat, sleep, breathe Oswegatchie. It's we live and work there. So what do you do for fun? Well, you get in a canoe.
Yeah.
You walk down the trail. You go and do chores.
Yeah.
A lot of times just for fun. So
right.
And it's also, the fun thing is, like 20 years ago when I started working there full time, we said, yeah, okay, if you look at it just a summer camp, you look pretty generic, okay, not a far to go, but if you look at it year round and over decades, there's a huge list of opportunities and things to do and grow and experience new ways of doing things. And summer camp, when I first started there, enrollment was at 314 kids. There was a lot of FFA kids who weren't finding their way to Oswegatchie, and part of my job was figuring out how to connect them to Oswegatchie, promotionally, get them interested. And so FFA's changed a lot. There's a lot more FFA chapters out now. They're having a real renaissance. But we had 844 kids at camp last summer over 5 weeks. So 314, 844 is been a pretty awesome adventure. Yeah. So it makes me like, on my tombstone right now, if I died, it'd be like 314 campers, 844. Not beloved father, son, husband. They'd be like increased summer camp enrollment. So, yeah. But, Lewis County is also an interesting place. And yes, Climax did go out of production, so that's just an example of a production facility that's changed. But let's be honest, modern production standards change and are always improving. And there's, at some point, survival of the fittest ethos goes on there. But I think what they're doing over there now is pretty genius, and they have a facility that they can take advantage of now. The Lewis County Educational Center down the road here, that's a huge opportunity. And with the connectivity of the internet, and the more and more people who get online locally, whether it be sell their things that they make at home, or to podcast, or to share other opportunities, or just send pictures out about a beautiful sunset in Branningham Lake. I think we are at a point now where we can start tipping back the other way, where people had to leave the county for opportunity. Now the toolbox is opening up to a whole nother level of things that people can do here in Lewis County, and set up a small grade manufacturing facility in their garage and bring stuff out, or a studio, or whatever it might be. Because now the whole world's looking for, the whole world's eyes are open to what's available to purchase or acquire or listen to. So we're at a tipping point, I think. So
yeah, and people that live here, that love living here, the pride just is overwhelming. When you see on your Lewis County Facebook page, you did the sharing about the pictures, right?
Yes, I did not expect that to be so successful.
It was amazing. Like, I thought, I've got the greatest picture. This will end up on there. And then I'm scrolling down through. Oh my God, this is wonderful. Just seeing all those photos that everyone's been holding on, probably sitting on their phone, show a couple friends or relatives, and then that post was the best I've seen so far this year.
Yeah, I'm blown away by that. Because I've been doing like the Facebook social media promotion thing pretty much like as a major part of my job for a good 10 years now. Because it's free, it goes right to people's, right to their hand in their phone. Before, phones were so popular for social media, was their computer or laptop, whatever. And I've only recently figured out the trick to get people to start posting and just offering more. Share a photo, tell us your story, and people are just willing to just start ripping, and just, if they're willing to type or share, they've been sharing hardcore. So
yeah,
the photo thing, I think I got it pinned to the top of the page right now. I think there's 236 comments. I think of those comments, something like 175 of those are photos. Yeah. And I was shocked people had them that readily on their device.
Yeah,
ready to go at the drop of the hat. I was blown away. Then I posted another picture. It was like a meme almost, about farmers being out there in the cold and working. And it was a cold, wintry weekend. I put that on there like Saturday morning at 7:00 in the morning, and so Lewis County, New York, as the header on the picture went out. It was shared 9,000 times.
Oh, that's crazy.
And it was viewed 500,000 times. So in the world of social media, I guess that's technically viral.
Yeah.
But I've never had anything take off like that before. I wish I had a Lewis County logo on the image or something too, because that was...
I had a very similar thing. I posted on the Moose. I made a meme, the Bird Box meme, Sandra Bullock with the blindfold, and it said... I forget which one it was, but I made two of them. One said driving in upstate New York, and it was the weekend of the blizzard, and that got shared like crazy. And then I made another one that says when you want to run to the store real quick but don't want to wait for your car to defrost.
Yes.
And the bird box meme, and it just, a couple thousand almost instantly.
Yeah, it's wild. And especially on social media, if you can hit it, especially when people are trapped in their houses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Of all the secret sauce ingredients to put in something, a snowstorm apparently is atop the list.
Right. Well, I just recently started another podcast, a video podcast, with my friend Doug Ho. I don't know if you know Doug or not, but he's locally famous.
Yes.
And we're weird, and it's a weird one. It's nothing like this whatsoever. And I had it all edited yesterday because we did it Friday or Saturday, and I posted it instantly. I was so excited to have it done, and it's only 8 minutes worth of video, which if you can get through 4 minutes, it's your type of thing.
Cool.
Or even 30 seconds, then you might enjoy it, but I don't think many people get that far. But then I'm like, oh, it's Super Bowl Sunday. Who is on Facebook on Super Bowl Sunday? And I told Doug, I said, this is not going to fly. Nobody's going to watch it. And he's like, no, everyone's on their phone Super Bowl Sunday. And it was very mediocre. This was our second episode, but the first one, within 24 hours, it was up to 1,000 views.
Oh, wow.
So, and that was just on a Wednesday night or something.
Was this on YouTube or?
Yes, YouTube
Okay.
and Facebook.
Oh, what's it called?
It's called Doug and Tony Change the World,
Oh, boy.
which is not accurate at all. It's just us being really, really stupid.
Stupid or weird?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. There may have been some alcohol involved, and at one point a motorcycle helmet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm cool with weird. I think
It's definitely not for everyone.
I think a certain amount of dose of weird is pretty important.
Yeah.
And I dare say, as I've gotten older, I've gotten less weird. I think because I'm the whole adult parent,
Yeah.
boss thing kind of after a while, straightens you out. But, weird is good. So
I think I get weirder with age, but I'm able to hide it a lot better, or at least control it when it comes out.
I think what I think is funny has gotten weirder.
Yeah.
And maybe because I just got to the point now where I realize a lot of things that are so important in the world really aren't important.
Yeah.
And they're going to just, especially if you watch the news, things that are important are weird, and then they're gone in 4 days. Like,
Yeah.
Was it worth it?
Yeah.
We all got pretty upset about that. Now it's over. Okay.
I try to limit my news intake. I'll watch it in the morning, and my wife will barely pay attention to it. She's just in the room while it's on, and I'll start complaining to her, like, look at this is so dumb. And she, yep. And then the day later, they don't even talk about that anymore.
Yeah. Well, I feel like local news, pretty much I try to keep tabs on that every day because it's local
I don't
news.
have a choice in that.
Yeah. The national news 3-day window. Okay, 3 days later, they're still talking about the same thing. So you can, if you DVR it, you can fast forward through a lot of stuff pretty quickly. Yeah. But it's crazy. Let's be honest. Like planet Earth, like 7 billion people kicking around, and they're going to do all the important news in 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Probably not.
21 of it is Trump, and I just hear the name Trump and I ignore whatever comes next.
Right.
Because I'm just to the point of I don't care. I get that everyone in the world hates that guy, and obviously they don't. But talk about something else.
Yeah.
Anything else. It's like when the election is coming up and all you hear is how everyone is bashing the other person.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much news we're missing out on because of it's basically a paid advertisement.
Yeah, it so much of the political news stream is marketing, and at some point, I understand. Give us a label, give us a stereotype. Great, fit in your little category. Put other people in their categories that makes you feel better. But at some point, everyone's got to. No, we're being hacked. We're like on a mental level, we're being news hacked by the repetition of all the stuff. Good, whether you're for it or you're against it, whatever it is. No, at some point we're being hacked.
They like to divide everything right down the middle with news. You're either against something completely or you're totally for it.
Yeah.
They don't like the They don't like it split into 3 groups.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the center about everything. I'm liberal, conservative, and a conservative liberal. Like some things I know I'm way more conservative than everybody else, and most everything else I'm the other side. You know, I can't stand the talking heads on either side who are so far to sides. I'm like, I can't stand any of them for more than about 3 minutes.
Yeah,
and I'm like, these people are nut jobs on both sides.
I don't vote because I don't feel like I'm informed enough, and I don't want to be informed enough.
Yes. Well, I vote
I trust that the rest of the world will figure it out. I don't want to be involved.
Yes, I'll. When you find yourself on the side of the majority, think again. So
Yeah.
that's Mark Twain, I'm pretty sure, or at least a variation of it. Yeah, it's so many people are worried about what people are doing. 3,000 miles away. I'm like, and as far as personal liberties, people worry about the government taking away your personal liberties. I'm a debt-free guy. I'm one of those Dave Ramsey crazy people. I didn't have a credit score for a long time. You give away more of your personal freedoms and restrictions to life by accepting credit card debt and other debts than any government regime is going to put on you. Yeah. So, it's a personal responsibility. I wanted to have a website once upon a time called Be Your Own President. It's like, no, this is how you be the president of the country that is you. Like, take care of yourself. Don't worry about this, that, and the other thing, because odds are you don't need to understand half of it anyways. But worry about you. Yeah. Like, does your yard need to be mowed? Mow your yard.
Yeah.
You need to not spend extra money on something you don't need. That's what you should do. So
I find if it doesn't affect my day-to-day life, I don't really need to focus on it that much.
Yeah. I like to study the art of advertising, marketing, and promotion. Because it's a bit of a dark art. It's kind of like some Harry Potter magic. You're not quite sure how they're doing it. So the more you pay attention to it, then you kind of break it down. So that's why I do like watching the news. And I'm probably one of the people who likes watching commercials on television because I like to see how they're
me too
putting the story together. Because there's some guys on TV, like there's one guy, I don't know if he's an insurance guy or whatever it was, but he looks like an expert. And then you see him in a commercial for an entirely different service. You're like, wait a minute. I thought the guy was like a professor. No, he's selling insurance. Now he's selling an app. Like, what? That guy, how's he getting both these jobs? So I like to follow all that stuff and then apply it to like what's going on in the world. So, what is the political agenda? How can you throw somebody else underneath the bus to cover tracks? Yeah. What's a distraction? What's a diversion?
Music, commercials and advertising it's a deep thing to get into. Even music, like I have to make all the commercials for work, and sometimes the music is what sells it, or the change in music.
Oh yeah.
When you're saying something positive and it's nice, friendly, light music, but then you get down to like the DWI commercials. Oh, it's fun to go out and party and have fun with your friends and ding 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 ding.
Yes.
And then, but you don't want to you don't want to get pulled over. It's just I enjoy that aspect of my job, and I never thought that I would. I thought it was just a thing you had to do on the side to prepare for getting ready to just brighten people's day with music. But the commercial aspect of it it's deep. You can go as deep as you want. You can just read the commercial and put the standard music to it, or you can really sell it.
You should do a commercial where you reverse the music. So the really happy part, you put the scary music on. That's one thing. When you do something that people don't expect, that's when they actually pay attention to. So I like to do things that have spelling errors in it so I can see who actually reads it and they tell me about it. I also like to create asymmetry in things because people also tell you it's ugly and be like, well, now I know you saw it.
Oh, man. I had this kid that come in to shadow me, Garrett Jones. I believe he's 16 or 17, and he wanted to learn about the radio station. So he come in, and I let him go live on air while I was there, of course. And I said, you got a low voice. You sound like a cowboy. It's Garrett Jones, the cowboy. So that's what I started calling him on air. And then he come in a few times to just kind of, when he had some time, jump in and let him on air real quick. So I stole a thing from, it's a Kid Rock song called Cowboy. Yeah. And it's a harmonica, cowboy. And it's a very robotic voice. So I just stole that little tiny clip. And whenever I talk about him, because he'll call me for requests and everything. I'm like, I just got a phone call from Garrett Jones, the cowboy, cowboy, and play the little clip. And a couple weeks later, he's like, why do you always play that little clip? I said, so when people hear your name, it's automatically in their head, cowboy. You're the cowboy. I'm tying the two things together. And then he said the other day, people in school are like, hey, the cowboy, Garrett Jones, the cowboy, and little things like that. Really, it's earworms, basically, what you're doing.
Yep.
Getting that repetition in there.
At summer camp in a dining hall, we'd kind of whip around after lunch, so all the staff stand up and say what they're doing. So I'll have, for many staff, I'll have a catch name for them or a catchphrase. So it was like Andrew the Captain Krager. So he's the captain. So, it's sometimes at that age they don't appreciate that they have a hook. And they're after 5 weeks, they're like,
yeah.
Baker 19 was my other favorite ones.
I love giving people nicknames because I've never really had one. I mean, Tony is a nickname. It's way better than Anthony. But it used to drive me nuts because people would always, hey, Tony, you Italian? No, I'm not Italian. It's a normal name.
Right.
I get that it's Italian, but so I enjoy giving other people nicknames because I've never really had one. Even the boss at work, he's like, when I first started, we ought to get a nickname. No, Tony's just fine.
Yeah. And Levesque's got a nice ring to it as well.
Yeah, it'd be nice if people knew how to spell it, but...
Oh, yes. I definitely noticed that was a problem. I was looking at it, I go, man, if I hadn't heard it said out loud, I might have mispronounced it.
I've read it a few things, and this is what I usually do when I try to sell myself on the radio, and I'll say it's Levesque, Levesque, just like it sounds.
Yes.
Yeah, and people call, what do you mean, just like, yeah, it's a joke.
Yes.
Never mind.
What would the English language be without the French?
Normal? Understandable? Maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe. Makes us a little more worldly, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We need that here in America.
Definitely.
Hey, this has been fun. This is, I think, the longest podcast I've done so far.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that because this is filling a lifelong goal of mine. Lifelong meaning in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I dreamed of being on Mark Maron's WTF podcast. Not that I would be asked to be on there because of anything artistic to offer. But when he had a golden number, it was like 300 or 400. I'm like, so I had access to his email for a little while there. So I emailed him and said, you should let a man on the street interview you. I never got a response on the email. Cool thing I did though is for the duck race, when we upgraded one flock to the next, we had like 4,300 of one style of duck, and then we ordered 10,000 of a new style of duck. So $1.40 a duck, 10,000 ducks, 14 grand in ducks. Well, I had this big pile of old ducks. So I started something called the Retired Racer Program. So I put a little sticker on it that said, take this duck to an interesting place, take a picture of it, and send me the picture. So I got several pictures of these rubber ducks in Spain and in Paris, and one from Mount Kilimanjaro. None went to China, none went to Japan. But for a while, I tried sending them to celebrities and having them take a picture with the duck. Ellen DeGeneres never sent us a picture, but Mark Maron did.
Really?
Yeah. And so it was like a Friday night. Kids are pretty young at this point, so you're not going.
You're gonna have to post this on Facebook now.
Yeah, I will. And I sent him a box. I put a letter in there, and I said, Mark, I want you to understand that we care about you as a person because there's so much love for you, Mark Maron, because of all you've shared on your podcast. There's so many people in America that listen to your podcast. Yeah, because you have guests, but we care about you. And I said, enough of that. Not about my stuff. And I said, take a picture of this duck and send me the photo. And so he held it up and he took a picture and he sent me this picture at like 9:00 at night on a Friday. He's wearing a funny toque and he looks pretty, you can tell he's been at his desk working. And I was just like, holy cow. This is my brush with greatness. This is Mark Maron.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So if honestly you didn't know what Mark Maron, if you didn't know what he looked like, you'd be like, who's this guy? He's just some guy with a duck.
Did a hobo take a picture? Yeah.
And that was when he was still in LA with his studio, his garage. And his garage was filled with all sorts of esoteric stuff that people would give him. A lot of books. and I've seen 2 or 3 interviews of the garage. Every time I'm scanning that garage like a hawk,
trying to
trying
find
to
the
see
duck.
my little orange duck with sunglasses in the picture.
Oh, you got to get one here for the studio now.
I was going to bring you one, but my retired racers are in a shed that has it's underneath a drip line.
Yeah.
So there's probably 3 foot of snow in front
Yeah.
of it right now. So
Well, I'm sure we'll be talking.
yes. And funny thing is, I get you the duck. I'll get a picture of you. You actually look like Mark Maron at the time because he had quite the beard as well.
Yeah.
So, in a side by side, you guys might be related. So
Maybe. I do have 1 or 2 ducks here.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
of the retired racers,
I
or
believe so.
did you get them at the Cream Cheese Festival, or
I'm not sure.
one year we gave out about 600 of those retired racers
Mm-hmm.
at the Cream Cheese Festival with stickers and everything. Well, I think they were stickered at the time. Yeah, that almost broke the project for me.
Yeah.
It was a long day of Cream Cheese Festival and rubber ducks, giving
Yeah.
them out to every person who was interested. So, and they do pop up around the globe every so often. I still get a photo, usually when someone's going on a trip to Spain or Paris. So lots of
It's awesome, the Mark Maron photo. That's great.
It was pretty cool. I was Orion Samuelson also. He got his picture taken with it too. He's a famous ag journalist broadcaster. So
Awesome.
so in the world of radio, he's I don't know if you know the name from U.S. Farm Report, but in radio he's kind of a legend. So
I met Charlie Daniels once.
oh yeah, was that here in Loudville?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so he came to see you.
Yeah. I interviewed Terry Clark
Okay.
over the phone, of course. I've met the Dead South 2 or 3 times.
Oh, yes.
Interviewed them quite a bit. I don't have any big name drops. Old Crow Medicine Show.
Oh yeah. I think
interviewed them
actually
a couple times.
you've said that in a podcast. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those guys. I mean, we've been listening to those guys for over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody had like a CD, like I think a burned copy of a CD, and that's all they thought they'd put out.
Mm-hmm.
But we had other friends even before that had like 3 or 4 more albums.
Yeah.
And so we got those albums out for them. So they had them in the kitchen. They were just like blown away by it. So
Yeah. Since I've seen them live, which has only been twice, I think they've come out with 3 albums. So they're a workhorse.
yeah, I kind of cherry pick their albums on iTunes. So I have certain songs. But I will say, every so often you go through a new phone or new device, and you haven't downloaded all of your musical library. I kind of go into music fast, and I start over who I'm listening to that way. So, Old Crow is not currently on my phone. I was listening to it too much. After a while, all of a sudden, because I think when you listen to it over and over again, you'll really appreciate the musicianship in it.
Right.
But after a while, you start to get a little hypnotized by it. And you gotta shut it off.
I was that way with Rusted Root for a long time.
Yes. I saw them play at Delhi
Yeah.
one year. They had a contest, and Jay Moore was doing this contest. Jay Moore from Hollywood. He was in Delhi doing a contest, and he was at Delhi and doing a show, and he goes, first prize, 3 tickets to Rusted Root. Second prize, 5 tickets to Rusted Root.
That's great. I remember I bought a cassette tape of them at a garage sale and just fell in love with it, and then bought all the rest of their stuff, which was, I think, 2 more cassette tapes.
They for their time, when they were big, they were different. And that's even before the age of the internet. They were different music.
Yeah.
Granted, we had the internet then, but we really couldn't do music on it. There's no YouTube, there's no iTunes.
Right.
But
You had to go to Rainbow's End to hear it.
Rainbow's End. What is that place? I don't know that one.
You don't know Rainbow's End?
No.
I think there was only ever 3 or 4. There's still one in the mall in Watertown, Salmon Run Mall. It's the hippie store.
Oh, that.
There's one in Old
yes.
Forge. There used
Okay.
to be one in Utica, but I don't think that's there anymore.
That all makes sense. It's all coming together. Because there used to be so many small music shops. That's what I thought you were referencing. And when I drive through Vermont, there were some music shops that were like in Morrisville, Vermont, which is, long story short. No, Johnson, Vermont, sorry. A really good music shop there. But that was right before like the iTunes landslide wiped out everybody.
Yeah. It's amazing all the stores that go by the wayside. I'm surprised that FYE is still going, but now they've kind of turned into the kind of
Toys and merchandise.
yeah. Kind of pop culture,
Things you can't download.
right? Cult stuff, culty stuff. Which it turned into a pretty cool store.
Yeah. I like going in there, especially when you can find like cheap DVDs, things that they've repackaged, obviously. My son's like that too. Looking at, old DVD sets for the old school Transformers and whatnot.
Yeah.
But,
Well, as soon as you buy a DVD, it ends up on Netflix.
Every time.
Or Hulu.
Well, we're so far back in the woods. We only have satellite internet, so we don't have quality internet like everybody else is used to.
Yeah.
So we are probably about 2 years behind everybody when it comes to the cloud generation. And the reality is, everything's going to be on the cloud in the future, but we don't really have access to Netflix. But I love DVDs. I love DVDs when it came out. They were still relatively cheap compared to VHS tapes and all that stuff. But I was in Target, and I had to buy a new DVD player recently. Target only had 5 DVD players for purchase.
Yeah.
That tells me this is like now we're sincerely in a VHS zone.
Right.
It is going by the wayside. So,
well, good luck finding the combo then.
The VHS
DVD combo.
Yeah,
My parents still have one.
that might be on eBay.
Yeah.
It's probably actually
It's like seeing a box TV.
box TV. Yes.
A couple years ago, the Edge Motel in Lions Falls upgraded to flat screens, and they were selling all of their TVs out of the rooms for $5 a piece.
Oh boy.
Who bought 3 of them? So I have 2 TVs out in the garage. One is in here somewhere, but we've got to have a TV in just about every room except for this room.
Yeah. The TV thing, that's a whole nother generational shift too. Just so much. I mean, I think more changed in the last 100 years than it had changed in 10,000 years before that.
Oh yeah.
And then more
Easily.
changed in the last 10 years than in the last 90 years before that. So accelerated change.
It makes you wonder about the future. What can it really maintain that?
Well, we're gonna hit a plateau or something. I dare say though, with all the robot commercials from the Super Bowl yesterday, though.
See, I don't have regular TV. I only have streaming, so I didn't watch the Super Bowl.
Oh, wow, it was a good game.
That's not what I heard.
Well, it was very slow and calculating game. Let's put it that way. So.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about it, but I used to watch it for the commercials and the. I think the last time I watched the Super Bowl was when Paul McCartney played, which had to be
5 years ago at least.
Oh no, that was probably 15 years ago.
Well, maybe. Feels like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
My favorite Super Bowl moment: Lady Gaga halftime show. There's like, I don't know, a drone or a crane cam overhead, and she looks up and says, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad." I'm like, wow, that was awesome.
Oh, that was before she jumped off?
Yes, it was like kind of in the beginning there, and she just gave a nod to her parents, and I almost teared up over that.
Yeah.
I still think about it. I'm like, man, that was to get to that level and be like, "Hey, Mom, hey, Dad."
Yeah. I get people to bust my chops all the time because I talk about my mom and dad a lot while I'm on air, and I'll send songs out to my mom and dad, especially if requests are slow.
Right.
And every time I do, my mom will send me a text right back because she listens every single day. And I always say that I love her, on air, and she'll send me a text back. Oh, love you too.
Wow. Parents, I love you, Mom and Dad. Yeah. In case I don't make it to the Super Bowl, I had to get them in there somewhere.
Right. This is just about as famous.
Yes. At least locally.
No, it's not.
Cool.
I believe this is the only podcast in Lewis County.
The Lewis County podcast is what I like to describe it as.
Yeah. Have you heard the Lewis County podcast? Yeah. Now I got to start one up in Oswegatchie.
Well, I always wanted to, but the real hurdle, I believe, especially in video or audio production, is that technical ability you have right there between your laptop and the soundboard over there.
That's not really a lot.
Yeah,
I'm gonna fix you up.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You'll have the second podcast in Lewis County.
Yes. Well, broadcasting today, we're watching a raccoon walk up the middle of the road. What's he doing? Is he rabid? So we go outside and see what it does.
You'd be surprised what people will listen to.
Yeah.
There's a few podcasts that I'm really surprised I got through it. I recognize the name. I'm like, I'll sit through this. Oh.
Yeah. Whenever I start a new podcast, I listen to the first episode and the most recent episode to look how their story arc has gone on. Like just your ability to interview or edit or whatever. So I do listen to a lot of audiobooks though.
Yeah.
And I think that's because with the audiobook, you're getting a certain quality of production.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's more long form as well. So you got to pay attention for, that 8 to 40 hours.
Right.
So
cool. Thanks so much. It was great to meet you, Bill.
I'm glad to meet you too. This has been fun. And I'll give you a big list of all the wonderful people out there
All right.
who should make a visit to the studio here.
And you can show up with them if you want.
Cool. Yeah, I tell you, when you're at Oswegatchie, you don't often go to town for things just for fun.
Yeah.
You got to get out of there. You have to get stuff, or you don't go anywhere besides.
When you get back from going to Walmart and you forget one thing, it's got to kill your day.
Yeah, you go without. You don't buy 1 dozen eggs. You buy 3 dozen eggs.
Right. Or a chicken or 2.
Yes, I have chickens as well, but actually I have to go buy chicken feed for them tonight. That's part of the reason I came to town. So cool. All right. Well, thanks for having me on. This has been great.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks for listening to Tony and Other People, a podcast. Questions, comments, concerns for Tony's overall well-being? Want to be part of the show? Find us on Facebook or email us at tonyandotherpeople@gmail.com.